Good evening, everyone, and namaskar to all. So, happy Odisha Economic Association Day. Uh, First of all, I invite Professor Dr. Jugal Mahapatra to preside over this meeting. Uh, and I welcome uh, Professor Kumar Pradhan, the Director of Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, IGDR Mumbai. Uh, and I also thank at the outset him for agreeing to deliver this Foundation Day lecture. I welcome all other participants, including a number of former presidents of Odisha Economic Association, including Keshav sir and uh, Manoj Panda sir, and uh, then we have Nirmal Chandra Sahu sir. So today we turn 55 years old, and that means we have completed 55 years of journey. And you know that Odisha Economic Association was established in the year 1968. And why April 27th? Because the registration happened on April 27th. So that's how we are celebrating this day as the Foundation Day. But then, if you see the informal process, then uh, people like Professor Vidyadhar Mishra, Devendra Chandra Mishra, and Professor K.M. Patnaik, Professor Baidyanath Mishra, they all had a meeting at Ravenshaw College, and with a humble beginning of around 50 members, they started this association, and then 25 years were celebrated at Ravenshaw College, and then the Golden Jubilee Conference was organized at Navakrishna Chaudhary Center for Development Studies by Professor Srijit and Professor uh, Sivlal Meher. So that's how we have already crossed 50 years, and today we are completing 55 years. And the membership has increased to 770, uh, starting with 50, in 1968. So 770 is definitely quite a good number, and we also have good, quite diversity. Uh, we have members not only from Odisha but from other states also, and people working in India and abroad. They have been our members, and most importantly, the journal, the Odisha Economic Journal, that again was published in 1968 from the very beginning, and now we have also completed again 55 years, and we are now enlisted in UGC So we are now trying to get it enlisted in Scopus. So that's how, if you see the past, definitely we have progressed quite a lot. And so on this day, we should thank all the founder members of Odisha Economic Association, and all the presidents, all the secretaries who have contributed to the growth of this association. And today, that's how we are celebrating this 55 years. So I think with that brief note, I am happy to also announce that uh, the name of Odisha Economic Association that was amended in the 52nd annual general body meeting, and this year we could change the name formally or officially, and that's so now onwards we are Odisha Economic Association. And immediately after getting the approval from the IGR Odisha, for which a lot of credit will go to the president, Dr. Jugal Mahapatra, for his involvement, for his intervention. In fact, within 2 days, no, I spoke to Jugal sir, and then within he made a call, and then within 2 days we got the approval. And yesterday we got also the certified copies, from the IGR Odisha office. So thank you, sir, for your quick intervention, and for making this happen. Immediately after getting the approval from IGR Odisha, we have now created a new website that is odishaea.in, because earlier it was orisaea.in. Now it is odishaea.in. So on this important occasion, we would like to also formally launch the website. So I'll just quickly show you the website. So this is now the new website, that is odissaea.in. Earlier it was Orissa. So you can now use this uh, no web address to get the information about Odisha Economic Association. And we have also updated all other sites like Facebook, Twitter, and so on. So yeah, so that's how we formally launched the new website for the Economic Association. So with this, I welcome everyone to this meeting, and for the first time, we are having this Foundation Day lecture, and because of course this is possible because we are going online. So with technology and time, things are changing, and we should take advantage of that. So we are grateful to these online facilities for which we are able to do all these things. So now with this, I invite the president of Odisha Economic Association, uh, Dr. Jugal Mahapatra, the former chief secretary of Odisha, also to address the gathering. Sir, it's over.
Thank you, Amarendra Babu. I think let me first extend heartiest greetings to all the members and participants on this Foundation Day of Odisha Economic Association. I think this is the first time, as you said, we are having the Foundation Day lecture. And we are indeed grateful that Dr. Pradhan has agreed at a very short notice to deliver the lecture. His scholastic achievements, his academic accomplishments are possibly well known to everyone who is logged in. So I think even then, as a matter of protocol, we need to introduce him to the entire audience. So I first request Pankaj Babu to introduce him, and then Dr. Pradhan can deliver the lecture. That to be followed by whatever discussion we can have. So, Pankaj Babu, please introduce Dr. Pradhan.
Thank you so much, sir, for this opportunity. Once again, I personally welcome you all to 55th OEA. And this is really a privilege to have one of the leading academicians of our time. And we are really honored, and it is a great pleasure for all the economic fraternity and all the academia who believe in discussing issues of our time, pressing issues. And it is really a matter of a big achievement for OEA to have Professor Kumar Pradhan with us, and he will be delivering the Foundation Day lecture for this year, 2023. And the issue that he has chosen for this lecture is macroeconomics of climate change, the Indian context. And why climate change is important, this is not something that we would be discussing because it is very well known to every one of us. And we are eagerly waiting to hear the economics perspective on climate change. Before I invite Sir, I would like to give a brief idea about the work and achievement of Professor Pradhan to our audience and those who are listening us on different platforms. His broad area includes macroeconomics, development economics, and climate change economics. And Professor Pradhan is currently the director and vice chancellor at Indira Gandhi Institute of Development Research, Mumbai. He is an alumni of Indian Statistical Institute, Delhi, where he completed his PhD in 1988. After completion of his PhD, he quickly joined as an assistant professor at the State University of New York at Stony Brook, USA. Subsequently, he has worked at many institutions, including as professor at Institute of Economic Growth, as we popularly known as we know, IEZ, Delhi. And he has been also chief economist at National Council of Applied Economic Research, New Delhi. Professor Pradhan was awarded Distinguished Visiting Fellowship at University of Canberra in November 2011. He was a senior research fellow at the Center for Globalization and Regionalization at University of Warwick, United Kingdom. He is also visiting senior scholar at Christian Michelsen Institute at Norway, visiting research professor in economics at Department of Family Medicine at Boston University, USA, and academic visitor at University of Western Ontario, Canada, and Beijing Institute of Technology, Beijing, China. As we all know him personally and academically, he has spent large part of his career in building input-output tables, social accounting metrics, and CGE models. He has been a distinguished feat in this arena of economic studies. He has large, apart from it, he has large research project and has been principal author of major reports. He has co-authored many academic journals and books, and most of his works has been input to policy, and most of his work has been seen translating into policy arena of different government projects in India and abroad as well. He has also contributed to policy by being member of various committees of governments, Indian government and otherwise, a different research center. And we are once again really happy to have him here. And needless to mention, he has organized different lecture series and workshop and distinguished, has delivered distinguished lectures at different distinguished institutions. So this is briefly what Professor Basant Pradhan is all about, and we would be more than happy to listen from him on the topic macroeconomics of climate change, the Indian context. Over to you, sir.
So, good evening, Sri Mahapatra, Dr. Das, Dr. Nayak, and friends. I am really privileged to be called to deliver this lecture. So I have to use my PPT for this. So I think I have to open the PPT. This.
Sir, for sharing, just click on the arrow button that present now.
Arrow button where in the?
Yeah, at the bottom you see that there is hand sign and then there is an arrow sign symbol.
No.
Yeah, just on the
hand sign and then next one, the
Yes.
3 points.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
No.
Arrow sign.
Left
Yeah,
hand side.
Yes.
To the left of hand.
Okay, then I should say the entire screen, is it?
Yes, entire screen. Yes.
Entire screen.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes, sir. You can now make it full screen.
Now you can see the whole screen, no? So, shall I do this or shall I make it big?
You can make it full screen, sir.
Okay.
So you have to go to slides. So
Yes, sir. Go to slides.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Yeah, let me start. Actually, this lecture, it has 3 parts. The first part is introduction. The second part is, I have to talk about the CG models in general. And third part is the results, from few papers, including the one we are working now, which is not complete. So let me start. All these things I'm just saying, but these are well known to everybody, all of us. Many believe that climate change is the greatest threat to human civilization. It may have disastrous effects on almost everything. So climate change is basically caused by fossil fuels. Climate change can be caused by, by natural processes, But the current climate change is not only by natural processes. It's by anthropogenic reasons, mostly by humans. This has been caused. So this is the responsibility on everybody how to control it. Climate change, it has many other impacts, as we all know. It has disastrous impacts on many things, but we are concentrating on economic impact today. And economic impact can be enormous. It can cause loss to infrastructure, loss to property and assets. It can affect livelihoods in many ways. And unfortunately, the poor and weaker sections of the society are more vulnerable to its impacts. Huge resources are required to mitigation and adaptation strategies, so which will have significant macroeconomic implications for the governments and the economy. So here in this presentation, we'll focus on the macroeconomic impacts of climate policies using computable general equilibrium models. We'll analyze the impacts on economic growth, on income distribution, as well as the feasibility of India's climate commitments. As we know, global warming will affect, it will damage infrastructure. We'll have loss to productivity because of rise in temperature. It may cause mass migration and financial instability. Financial instability may arise due to increase in uncertainty and damage to assets. Income distribution will worsen. In fact, it has already started. You can look at Pakistani floods. We will look at economic impacts at macro level. There are various types of models which analyze the climate change impacts and the consequent policies and its impact. So econometric models and CG models are generally used. But we have to look at short run and long run separately. Our focus here today is to look at the long run. And to look at the long run, I believe CG models are more appropriate than macroeconometric models. And this work I'll be presenting, it's not only my own work. A lot of co-authors are involved. First, let me, explain the properties of CG models. And then I'll say, using that, what sort of results we are getting. So if you want, you can stop me and ask if something is not clear. It's very simply, if you are a policymaker's interest, what is its interest? They want to, know what will be its impact on, for example, growth, economic growth, or income distribution, or poverty. So if you put a tax on, let's say, bread, that may affect its prices, which will affect the consumer price index, which will affect wages and employment, which will affect production. That circle will go on. So how to capture that? That is the question. If you look at CG models and partial equilibrium models will stop at some point. Partial equilibrium models, they will involve some sector or a set of sectors, but it won't involve the whole economy. So when you don't take the whole economy into account, basically you are assuming that all other sectors, whatever is affecting this sector, those are constant, those variables are constant. So in partial equilibrium models, you look at only clearance of few markets, or you may not look at clearance. You can say, I want to have excess supply or excess demand. If you look at Keynesian type of models, but you address only few markets. But in general equilibrium, you address all the markets. when you use macroeconomic models, generally they're good for short or medium term forecasting and analysis. They're good when you use money and finance. You can use money and finance in CG models, but to me, macroeconomic models are better when you use money and finance. But in macroeconomic models, economy-wide, though they are economy-wide models, economy-wide feedback mechanism is limited. And when time series data, long time series data are not, are scarce or not that relevant. If you have sharp changes in the economy, then time series data is not that useful. In those cases, macroeconomic models are not that useful. And then you have the Lucas critic. If you go to another type of models which many people use, and during our planning days, it was widely used. Its main problem is, you are assuming linearity. You are assuming this is basically you are taking production side and you are assuming linearity in production. Of course, you have on your demand side and you can do anything, but they don't feedback on each other. So that is the limitation. Then you have social accounting matrices models. They are basically extensions of IO models. When you add, national accounts and income distribution to IO models, then they become social accounting matrices. And once you can use it as a model and you can do analysis like general equilibrium analysis. But the point is that here you are assuming linearity. And that linearity is both for production and for the demand side. But when multi-agent, multi-commodity, multi-factor models are needed, general equilibrium models can fulfill the role. And these models are relevant when the shocks are large, as typically the case with globalization, climate change, and etc. So since we are looking at climate change, and if you are looking at long-run economic impact, then I feel these type of models are more useful or more appropriate. So what are the advantages of this type of models? They capture the feedback between all markets and institutions. They capture the feedback between domestic and foreign markets. They also, they are supposed to simulate the workings of a market economy. Of course, you can make changes here and there, but broadly they simulate the market economy. And prices adjust, in typically what we read in textbooks to equate demand and supply for all goods and factors, subject to technological feasibility and resource constraints in the economy. Here, we are assuming optimizing behavior of economic agents, and we do primitive specifications of all behaviors. And there are economy-wide interactive effects. And as I told you earlier, the interactive effects here are much more than within a macroeconomic model, because here we have the complete specification of circular flow of income. And here we go to the basics. So we look at we take the utility functions, production functions, budget constraints, and all the interactions. So these type of models, they can have many types. They can be neoclassical models, structuralist models, monetary general equilibrium models, dynamic CG models, recursive dynamic models. What we are using and most people are using for this climate analysis are recursive dynamic models. And there are DSG models which are more used for macro policy, basically for Keynesian policy. And they can accommodate also non-market clearing, especially for labor or commodities, when you want to do analysis using unemployment, imperfect competition, or you can fix demand, like government demands. Many times you can say government demands are fixed. Then you can analyze externalities, such as pollution or climate damage. All these are externalities. When, basically they can accommodate, like when you import something from outside the country and you produce the same thing inside the country, if there is quality differences, then that you can also accommodate. Or if you export something and that export quality is different from your domestic quality, that you also can accommodate. You cannot say I'm linearly adding, domestic production or outside production, export or domestic consumption. So all that you can accommodate in these type of models. These type of models, generally people use two type of closures. Why I'm saying this is closures are, many times the closures drive a lot of results. Like suppose you say my, my investment is fixed in the model, like Keynes. Then the closure is Keynesian. If you say, no, my saving will drive the investment, then that becomes neoclassical closure. So these models are applied originally for trade liberalization and tax policies widely. Then new fields, increasing return to scale, imperfect competition, trade in new commodities, like trade in emission rights, concerning climate change, effects on international migration, agriculture, many things, and economic impact of climate change, climate policies. So nowadays, the CG models are widely used for analyzing the climate policies. But, everything is not good. Like every model, CG models have their own, limitations. So while analyzing the data, we have to be aware of the limitations. Often the empirical basis is weak because we don't use much data for CG models. Then many parameters are not estimated econometrically. But here Lucas critique is useful. Basically we are using less data. So this when we use first we told this is CG models and general equilibrium theories, very strong, this, that. But when you deviate from perfect competition, those theories are not very strong. They are weak. And then you have to see whether in reality or at the ground level, whether general equilibrium theory assumptions, how realistic they are. So if you take these two things into account, then that is a big limitation for CG models. But like any other model, CG models have their own limitations. But for analyzing and making it appropriate, one has to make many adjustments. So we have to live with that. Then how to build? We have to build this by dividing the households, the factors, capital, labor, everything. So we have to keep in mind while doing that, if you make, you cannot take all individuals or all households or economic agents into your model. That is impossible. That, you cannot do that. So if you want to group them, then that grouping itself is an art. So you have to be careful while grouping them so that some homogeneity is there. So maximum homogeneity, it is a better model. For building a CG model, you need a social accounting matrix. So I have already explained social accounting matrix. So it is a combination of IO table, income distribution, and national accounts. So you need that basic data set to build a CG model. Then you have to look for production functions and utility or demand functions. So basically, Leontief functions, Cobb-Douglas functions, and constant elasticity of substitution or CES functions are used. Almost everybody use these three types of functions. I'll just put this, yeah. So I have to just tell, in these models we are building, this is the structure of the model. You have two types of production. Production is divided into two types. One is fossil fuel sectors and the other is non-fossil fuel sectors. So fossil fuel sectors, it's like any other production function, but you have to add a fixed resource because these resources are fixed, and unless you add a parameter, your model can blow. So to keep a limit, you have to add a fixed resource. Otherwise, it is like any other production function. You have to use the intermediate input and capital and labor, and capital and labor will give you value added. But capital and labor you can divide also. If you want to, let's say, different type of capital or different type of labor. For example, if you have labor, skilled labor, unskilled labor, semi-skilled labor, all that, if you have data and you want to include, you can do that. And that will enrich the model. But when you go to non-fossil fuel sectors, they will use, you have to be, it is much more data intensive. Apart from your value-added capital and labor and intermediate input, your energy, it has various sources, and you have to do that because that is your, that is where you are focusing on, and you want some results on that. So you have to have various sources of, electric energy, like renewables, biomass, biomass, nuclear, hydro. Here we are nuclear, we are calling it renewable. Basically, it's not renewable in a strict sense, but you can, since it is a non-fossil fuel sector and the amount of material used is small, we are calling it renewable. And then thermal and CCS. What is CCS? CCS is carbon capture storage. So when you use thermal electricity, if you use this technology, then your carbon dioxide emission goes down because that you can capture that and store it and use it in some other way. But that is, the cost. Somebody may ask why you are not using it. The main problem is that technology is very costly. But that is very useful if technology, the innovation takes place and the prices, go down. So you have to basically, when you do a CG model, you have to basically do what we call simulation experiments or scenario building. Basically, you say there is a base year, and then you produce in a dynamic, recursive dynamic model. Then you produce the results for next many years, whatever you decide to, and that will need some assumptions. Because if you want to forecast for next 10 or 20 years, so the model will not by itself will give you the results. You need outside assumptions on some parameters. So then once you build that, then you can make some changes, what we call policy. You can make some policy changes and see how, with the same assumptions, what are the new forecasts, and then you can say this is the impact of policy. So that is what we are doing in all our models. Then how to measure whether your policy, whatever policy you implemented, whether it's good or bad, then you need some performance indicators. So for us, the performance indicators will be GDP growth, it can be poverty, it can be export, imports performance, it could be exchange rate, it could be relative prices, or it could be what we call CV or EV, compensating variation or equivalent variation. This is called Hicksian compensated variation and Hicksian equivalent variations. So these two are very widely used. So I'll just tell that, and then if you look at this diagram, if the price of C2 goes down, then your budget constraint will shift upwards on the C2 axis. So you are basically able to buy more C2. So what is compensating variation and what is equivalent variation? Equivalent variation measures basically how much you gain if you evaluate the gain at the existing prices. That is called equivalent variation. And what is compensating variation? If you measure the gain in the new prices, that is called compensating variation. So these two are used. That's why I just told this, and I'll just go all this. But I'll talk about a little bit on this, how these models they estimate poverty, for example. Poverty, one is if you have data on everybody, you can use FGD index. They call Foster-Greer-Thorbecke index, and you have 3 types of poverty, including head count ratio. So you say above this level of income or below this level of income, somebody is poor. Then you count them and you say this is the ratio. That is one way. The other way, data is not generally available for like this, in many situations when you are building a CG model. So data is available, like suppose data is available for some groups. Let's say these are the let's say occupational groups, agricultural laborer, or let's say urban salaried class. Like these groups, if data is available and the data parameters are available, like they are mean and variance is available, then there also you can calculate. Then you can calculate how many people are below poverty line. And what we do, you can fix this the commodity, like when you change any policy, the prices will vary. So when the prices will vary, at the new prices you have to calculate the poverty line. So you can fix what they do, they fix physically the amount of commodity a poor person, a person at poverty line consumes, and then they can change. So these are the 2 ways of doing it. And data requirements is very huge. So, but much, in some sense it's huge and some sense it's less. In terms of distribution of income, because you want to analyze income distribution, that data you need. So I'm saying that data is very scarce. So in that sense, this data requirement is very, very big. And then you have to, distribution, not only in terms of size distribution of income, but also you need in terms of households, income in terms of labor and capital. If you have 2 types of, primary input, if you have more, then you need accordingly. Like suppose you want to say skilled labor, unskilled labor. In a family, one person may be unskilled, another person may be skilled. You say how, if you have that division, from skilled labor I got this much, for unskilled labor I got this much. So all that data you have to use if you have. Then you have to you need some estimates when you do dynamic models or assumptions. If you don't have the estimates, like labor force growth, like total factor productivity growth, like sectoral capital growth, elasticities. There are many elasticities, like production elasticity, export elasticity, import elasticity. So all that elasticity you need. And these are not if somebody doing a CG model, that same person doesn't do all that alone. They have to borrow from the literature. It's not possible for one person, one team doing it. So now let me come to these results. What sort of results we get. This is, here what we did, we tried to assess using a CG model, the technological progress and carbon pricing. These two elements, how they impact the green energy transition. Or if you put a target, okay, we have to reach this target, then how much technological progress can help, how much carbon pricing can help. So, previous to this Glasgow commitment, in the earlier commitment was we are supposed to have 40% of electric power generation by 2030. So this work we did then. So we tried to do that, and what we did, we took there are two things. Like if you look at install capacity, the install capacity is already there. By now it is already there. You won't have to wait till 2030 for install capacity of 40%. But if you look at generation is much less. I think it may be less than 30%. So if you want to reach at that level, then how much technology can help and how much carbon pricing can help. In India, you don't have carbon pricing in the sense everywhere else, Europe or they have. But we have something which is we can call carbon pricing because we have coal cess. So we are putting a carbon pricing on coal. There is a tax on coal. So using that, suppose you use coal cess as well as if you use technological change, then what happens? So we get first let me tell the results, and then I'll go to more details, because I think that way it will make it more clear. Endogenous technical change in renewables on the current level of carbon pricing can help to achieve the low carbon target along with economic gains. So if technology is endogenous, like innovation is endogenous to the economy, and there is enough innovation in renewable energy, then that is much more helpful, even if you don't increase the carbon price or coal cess in our case, because we don't have economy-wide carbon price. So if you don't do anything, still you can reach the target, and you have some slight economic gains. Like when we do basically we understand that when we do carbon policies or climate policies, then generally we lose economic growth. But in this particular case, you may gain some economic, there may be some economic gain in terms of GDP. Secondly, coal cess can facilitate the shift towards a low carbon economy by decreasing the relative prices of non-fossil fuel energy and being a source of finance for supporting R&D in renewables. So if you put a coal cess, then the government will get a revenue for that. And that revenue, if you use, that revenue can be used in various ways. There are various models doing that. One way you can transfer to poor people. You say poor people are more affected, let me transfer. That is one way of doing it. So income distribution may improve in those cases. And there are some models which show, in fact, we had some work earlier, we showed that it improves for some classes. But if you put that into R&D in renewables, then that will help, to achieve your target and take, transition. You will have a smooth transition towards low carbon economy. Under certain conditions, income distribution also improves here in this case. Like Gini coefficient improves. Finally, advances in carbon capture storage, CCS technology can help to achieve CO2 emission reduction at a lower economic cost. If you take carbon capture storage technology vis-a-vis other technology, let's say solar and wind. If technology improves in solar and wind, also economy gains, if the prices go down. But there are in this case, two things happen, but you are not going, you are not stopping, even if your solar and wind is in, the cost goes down, your production from coal, electricity production or energy production from coal is also going up. But if you have CCS technology, then your CO2 emission will reduce much faster. So since India is a, we have a lot of coal. I think we are third or fourth largest. I forgot. Coal we have. Then I think CCS technology will be very good, provided the prices goes down, and we can invest in R&D of CCS. The other thing is that here we are saying basically, two things which everybody else is also saying, like technology and finance. Even if there is no technological, not much within the country, if we get technology from outside at a cheaper rate or at a subsidized rate or even free, which is unlikely, then it will be very useful. And the other thing is finance. Finance is the key. I'll give one example why finance is the key. You need not only finance for investment in R&D, you need finance for finding alternative livelihoods for the people who lose their livelihood. For example, like let's say coal mines. Coal mines are located in eastern India, the poorer states. But solar or wind, those investments are mostly not in eastern India. They are somewhere else. So, if you reduce, or stop some coal mines, then a lot of people will lose their livelihood, and they are more likely to be poor people, because these areas are poor. So then, who will be employed in the other places, in the renewable sector, solar or wind? They will be much more skilled. So one is to reskill the people, skill the people in this, to be fit for this. But is it feasible to skill those people who are currently working? And is it feasible to, take them to the other place? So whether it is economically feasible or whether it is politically feasible, so those questions arise. And those questions can be, it is also, even if it is feasible, it needs enormous finance. So you need not only finance for technology, to buy technology, transmission technology, storage technology, production technology, all technology. You also need finance for, resettling people, for reskilling people, for giving them alternative employment. So to make it acceptable to the economy and to the polity, a lot of finance is needed. And since this thing everybody is saying, since all the contribution, to most of the contribution to climate changes or CO2 emission are by rich countries from Europe and North America and other rich countries. So they are morally obligated to provide finance. So anyway, that is one thing. Then I won't go through the exact detail how I did the model, because I don't have much time. I'll describe the other one, because I have given a sense how a model is built. So in this specific case, I won't tell that. I'll tell you some other results. Yeah. So these results, this is on our COP26 pledges at Glasgow. So how feasible it is? We promised to much more than what we earlier promised for our NDC, nationally determined contributions. So here, in this case, we have taken into account, a lot of government initiatives and policies. And like Ujjwala, there are many schemes how to improve the, energy efficiency in electricity, in, buildings, in, all those government initiatives we have taken into account in this model. And we try to say that if you reach, what is our promise? Our promise is we need for India, we have to produce 500 gigawatt of renewable energy, and by 2030, and 50% of renewable capacity of the total capacity. 50% should be renewable. Then, in comparison to 2005, by 2030, the carbon intensity of GDP should be reduced by 45%. So these are big, commitments. These are big commitments India has given. So given that, what is the feasibility of this? According to us, after using a CG model, we see that this, the feasibility depends on, apart from every other, other things, it depends on economic growth. Unless you have a high economic growth, you cannot, achieve this. There are 2-3 things why high economic growth is very essential. One is, you need a lot of investment. If your economic growth is high, that is obvious that, you get more investment. Secondly, if your economic growth is high, then only you need more electricity. It's very, simple concept that you need more electricity if you economic growth is high. And you are not going to dismantle the thermal power stations. So not only that, you are going to increase. That is the plan. So if you are going to increase that, and then also you want 500 gigawatt of electricity, and you want 50% of that should constitute 50% of total generation, then you need high economic growth. And this is also not enough, according to us, because this amount of, $420 billion US we have calculated it's on the very lower side, because this doesn't include many things. These just include the production. What about storage? What about transmission? So storage and transmission will be very costly. So, and storage technology is evolving, and then you need, as we know, like most of it is is controlled by these materials like lithium and etc. They are controlled by China currently. And you must have read in newspapers recently, it became a big news when they found very large deposits in Jammu and Kashmir. So all those things will take time to materialize. And then given that we are meeting that 500 gigawatt is not that easy. It is possible, but not that easy. I'll tell you one thing, one more thing here, because what I told you in this two sets of results is that how to achieve our commitments, what India has committed. We did another work where we, from another point of view, like suppose, shall we go Shall we go for all climate policies? Is it useful for us? We did one analysis. We took only impact on agriculture in India, and we took from literature, what will happen if climate change takes place, if temperature rise so much and this and that, if you don't do much. Then we showed there like the amount of money will spend as a percentage of GDP for climate change is much lower than the damage it will cause only to agriculture. Forget about other costs for India. But then it is not that simple, because if you do alone, it's not, it won't, nothing will happen. It has to be done by everybody, all countries, or especially those who, emit large amounts of GHG emissions. They have to also do. So in that paper, what we did, it was a, because many institutions are involved there, from China, India, and many institutions from Europe. So we tried to see, like if you have a global model and try to see who will do how much, and give some, fairness rule for India. Under that condition, this happens. So this result was very interesting, but it was a conditional result. So the conclusion is that if, this is, I think this conclusion almost everybody gets, that if you, everybody, does their bit, whatever is required from them, then it is, the gain is much, much more than the loss. The loss is not much. But if you look at developing countries and their requirements in terms of, technology and finance, then it is huge. Even other developing countries, it is much worse than India, because India is growing very fast. So I stop with this, and if there is any questions, I'll try to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any question, brief observation?
I'm just trying to.
Shall I
Stop
raise,
sharing.
shall I raise one question? Am I audible to everybody?
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah, please.
Yeah, myself, Dr. Sanatan Naik. I am from Lucknow, Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University. Sir, first of all, I show my gratitude. Have an excellent lecture covering all macroeconomic dynamics with climate change. Really, I learned specifically a lot of things. But sir, one thing I need your clarification regarding, because the carbon price you have mentioned somewhere in your model, saying that you have taken a proxy as a coal tax, cess on coal.
Yeah.
But sir, price, I think USA and many developed countries, they have estimated per ton carbon. In India, you have mentioned also that in India it is not properly estimated. Even also carbon tax concept has initiated in India in terms of in the last 4 or 5 years in the budget also it is introduced. However, it is not much successful in India, because in a developing country like us, we are already paying a lot of taxes in terms of GST and other things, and in 18% tax bracket, almost 65% of the commodities they are covering. But one question is, carbon tax is how it is relevant or how it will be acceptable. Number one question is how the coal cess is a comprehensive tax which will cover the carbon price, number one. Number two, how it will be acceptable by Indian citizen, or as you have mentioned, a lot of people, those are in marginalized sections, they will also get affected, because we know that tax, the ultimate victim is the consumer. Most probably the necessity commodity those who are coming. Sir, I need your
Yeah.
reply.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, it will be very difficult in Indian context to impose a carbon tax. There is a lot of discussion going on, but it will be difficult because it will be, the tax will be mostly regressive. If you put a carbon tax, even the coal tax is regressive. We found from our model. I didn't mention that if you go for technological change and technological change across, even if you take the trend, what is happening in solar and wind, and also CCS. So if you look at that, they are much better. And if we get technology from outside, which is food, but we cannot complain others to give us, that is much better than this carbon tax. So carbon tax, we put a carbon tax to see how much, this, because if you put a carbon tax, it helps to go to renewables, because renewables will be cheaper relatively. So that way we put and we saw the results. But you are right, it will be much more difficult to make it acceptable in Indian context, because it will be, it will be more regressive apart from everything else. The first question you asked, why you call it carbon price? That what carbon price does, coal says does the same thing. So carbon price is, it is wider, and coal says is only for coal. So, and coal is the most polluting, among all the coal, oil, and gas, coal is the most polluting. So in that sense, you can call it is a, as a, you can interpret as a substitute for carbon price, sorry, coal tax as carbon price.
Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah, Basanta, thank you for a very illuminating lecture. I have a couple of questions. One is, how many sectors you have that produce power?
How many? I could not get it.
How many sectors? What kind of, is it just coal versus non-coal, or you have other things also like thermal?
Coal versus non-coal?
Yeah, or thermal versus non-thermal, or you have hydro?
No, like coal is, when we put a, what we call carbon price or coal tax, is only coal, because coal is the, most important source for like I think it's almost 60% of electricity production. But coal is also most, but it is, when we look for, when we say this many percentage of renewable, 50% of renewable, or we say you are reducing to 45% of intensity. So it includes everything, coal, oil, gas.
But did you have a distinction between the between the fossil fuel sectors and non-fossil fuel sectors for power generation?
I think upon disconnect he gale, Manoj babu.
Acha, okay. No, I think.
No, you are audible, sir. Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you, sir.
Hello.
No, anyway, see, the other question I have is, how costly is CCS as a unit cost of production of thermal power?
Hello.
Yeah, how costly is CCS as a unit cost of thermal power?
Hello.
Hello,
Sir is asking.
you able to hear?
Dr. Panda is asking how costly is CCS as a unit cost of power, fossil power. How costly
what
is
proportion of
CCS?
cost? Am I audible? what
You are
proportion of the cost?
not very clear. How
Oh,
costly is which power?
CCS, carbon
CCS.
capture. Carbon capture.
CCS power, I think till now it is not, I don't remember, till
it's
now
not
it is
done.
not economical feasible in Indian context.
Yeah,
It is
the
not
But
technology.
some people use outside.
I see. Also, in your, in your simulations, you have not taken into account CCS.
No, you are right. Our simulation, we are saying if and but. Suppose you CCS technology improves, then what happens? So if it cost goes down, then we will use it. So basically, either somebody should give us, or we should innovate.
And did you also simulate, CCS cost going down versus, say, wind energy cost going down or solar energy cost going down? Did you have some simulations on that kind of thing also? So that just to get a wider canvas.
No,
Or what?
we did the following. We did the following. One simulation, we say all the we say improvement takes place or innovation takes place. All solar, wind, nuclear, and CCS and hydro everywhere. Suppose it takes place and we made it endogenous. How much it should improve to meet this target without doing anything to coal tax. Coal tax is currently at this level. We say we don't touch it. We'll just innovate. And that innovation, we calculate endogenously the innovation in all, not only in CCS. Then separately, we did only for CCS.
Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Nirmal. Yes.
Sir, I'm extremely thankful to
Hello?
Professor Pradhan that you have made a wonderful presentation. And in fact, it might be stimulating research in Orissa to do such kind of modeling and econometric exercises.
Hello?
What? Am I audible? Am I heard?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah.
Why am I not audible?
No, Basanta is not able to hear him, I think.
I think. Is it clear, sir?
Yes.
Can Basant sir hear?
Sir, your voice is audible, sir.
हाँ
We
फोन
can hear.
रखी दियंतु हाँ कारण मु तो कहूची कि मते सुबुनी हाँ
Basant sir सुनी पारुंदी.
फोन रखी दियंतु
Right. Now, in spite of all limitations, I find one of your conclusions is that in a low growth scenario for renewable energy sector, we require about $420 billion. We require about $420 billion investment.
Yes.
If I have studied it properly, in spite of all limitations of the model. One can see the limitations. They are well grounded within our data limitations and our capturing of the true economic picture. In spite of this limitation, if for renewable energy sector in low growth scenario, it is $420 billion, which comes to roughly 30 lakh crores of rupees. What is the political acceptability of accepting this kind of dynamics? Meaning you'll have to orient the entire economic exercise in country in such a way that such huge investment is made in the renewable energy sector. Now, what is your assessment of this being accepted in India by reorienting our budget exercises and all that only for renewable energy sector? There are many other sectors which also require.
That is true. Actually, if you, but the other estimates by others are much more. Anyway, so, but if you ask me for political acceptability, those that will always remain an issue because to make it politically acceptable, anything, to raise money, it will always remain an issue. So, okay. So political acceptability, you have to basically two things will, one has to do two things. If two, three things happens, then political acceptability may be easier. One thing is, if everybody else do, every country, especially big countries, USA, China, Europe, they do their job. Japan is actually, they are doing. So if they meet their targets, then it will be easier politically because they are doing and we should do. Second thing is that if they transfer, if the rich countries, they promise, long ago that they have to give $100 billion every year to developing countries. Till now, they have given only 20. They are giving about 25, $1 billion. But that requirement is much higher now. So if they, transfer, then, if all these things happens, then it will be politically more acceptable within developing countries, not only in India. So you can say, okay, they are doing so much, we have to do, we are morally obligated. But otherwise, it's difficult, I agree.
Now, then I have one thing that we can think within economics as to how do we capture environment, climate change, etc. in the long run. Now, for example, our production functions take into account only capital, labor, and in your fossil sector, you have said some fixed resource we take. But we never accept environment itself is an input, is a factor of production. Having productivity, having marginal productivity, etc. Now, till that kind of a scenario is accepted within economics, well, all our exercises will be less than an ideal kind of a thing. For example, even in your input-output things, how much of oxygen we use and how much of carbon dioxide we produce. If that becomes an input-output structuring in the input-output exercises, and in production function, we use natural capital as another factor of production, then we have a better kind of a picture which require basic changes at the fundamental levels in economics. Meaning, in spite of these limitations, that your CGE with data limitations in India is doing such an enormous job is really heartening. But we need to reorient a whole lot of economics by accepting environment as a factor of production itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, this is very interesting. There is some work going on, to have this extended input-output, including this, negative inputs. These are basically negative inputs. The point is there are three things, three points I have to make. One, actually, if you take all that, it is really good, into account, and you calculate the marginal product, then you are optimizing, so that environment is taken into account in your production. So your GDP is basically not GDP, you have to minus something. The point is that here also, the three questions arises. First, let me say what we are doing also take that into account indirectly, though not fully. Because when you say climate change will happen, and if you do this, it will go down. So there you can say, okay, if I do afforestation, it will absorb a lot of carbon. All that you can take in this model. You can take afforestation. You can say you can produce only a particular type of energy, renewable energy, from solar and wind. So it won't damage the environment, because if you produce from coal, environment is damaged. So you are taking indirectly that into account. But the more important point is whether even this, if you do this and do policy accordingly, whether it will be politically feasible or acceptable? That is the question. In the fundamental question remains, because suppose you say a poor person, they collect wood and they burn. You say, oh, this is damaging my climate, my environment, don't do it. So that will be regressive. So at a larger level, it comes to like this, developing countries saying we have to produce cheap energy from coal, this, that, because we have to develop, our poverty has to go down. But the other side, because you have already become rich by doing that, and you have accumulated and damaged all the climate, and you are forcing us to do now. So, but these extreme positions, can politically at international level India take? No. Because if you take that, then nothing, progress. So you have to have some balanced approach. But your question is very interesting.
Any other comment, question? Okay, shall we wind up?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Hello.
yes, sir. I just want to need some clarification, sir.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah.
Please.
Sir, then in Indian context, what can be the effective instruments that can mitigate the climate change? Because it's an developing country and the country is already endowed with the overriding priorities, so we can go for carbon tax and all this. So, what can be the other effective instruments that can mitigate the problem of climate change?
Yeah, because as I mentioned earlier, because we have a lot of coal deposits, okay, and if best for us is CCS, if the technology improves, but simultaneously we should not, we should keep on investing as much as possible, on solar and wind. Subject to the condition that you should improve our storage, because just producing enough is not won't do the job. You have to improve the storage. That is the main stumbling block. So and also from if you look at, if you how much it will materialize, we don't know, but a lot of people have promised a lot of investment in solar and wind in India, from the private sector. So we don't know how much actually it will translate into actual production, and that will depend, how much it will actual, that will depend upon to a large extent on storage technology. So, hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you hear?
So means, yes, sir. It's
Can you hear?
yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, whatever. Let me repeat. I don't know whether you had everything or not.
Yes,
I'm
I
saying,
have,
as I mentioned earlier, we have a huge amount of coal deposits. So for us, best is if CCS improves. The technology improves and it becomes economical. Then we should go for that. But simultaneously, we should not. We should we have a lot of sunshine and wind. So we should keep on investing as much as possible, subject to the condition that we are able to create the storage, facilities. Otherwise, because if you read newspapers, last 2 years, you will find a lot of promise of investment in RE sector by private sector in India itself. So how much will materialize, we have to wait and see. And to a large extent, it will depend on storage and transmission capacity.
okay, sir, thank you. That means renewable energy are our major source that can be useful.
Yeah, we have to go for renewable energy. There is no option for anybody. Only we have to look at whether our poor people suffer or not. So we have to find some way to compensate.
Thank you, sir.
But there is, I don't think there is any other option for anybody in the long run apart from renewables. Or if you go for coal, with CCS.
Okay, I think we are almost. It's about 8:22. We should now try and wrap up. Let me just very briefly, just recapitulate the takeaways from what we have heard from Dr. Pradhan today. The first very major takeaway that we have all been introduced to CZ modeling. That's a very, very important learning from this lecture, because many people may have heard of CZ modeling, but I think he gave a very good flavor of what CZ modeling does and why it is important. Secondly, he has also, second takeaway is why CZ modeling is superior in terms of long-range forecasting in respect of very major policy, changes. So I think that's the second. And the third is an application of CZ modeling, particularly on a very important challenge that the whole humanity is facing, which is climate change. So I think, it's not only the theory, but the application of CZ modeling in a particular, very important context we have learned today. This is such a engaging and such a invigorating topic that we can continue well beyond midnight and will still not be satisfied. Our appetite will remain unsatiated. So I think we have very, very important learnings. He has highlighted many issues, very, very, in a very short time, regarding not only production, generation of renewable, but associated investment in transmission, carbon storage issues have come up. In my way, in fact, Dr. Pradhan, I may mention, there is one promising area which remains not very much discussed. Pump storage schemes in hydro projects can be a very good source of generating cheap power, excellent cheap power. And in the home district of Dr. Manoj Panda itself, lots of investment come, and I have been trying for more than a year now. So lots of possibilities there, even in agriculture. Let me mention that low carbon rice farming technology has been very largely mainstream, and Vietnam has taken a very large project. So lots of possibilities there. And I am particularly sanguine that technological advancements will really, meet these challenges. Today, things look formidable, but the pace of technological change is so intensive that I think the mankind will meet these challenges. The costs of carbon storage, the CCS technology, production of renewable power, storage and transmission, all these issues, and the other sector also, transportation, construction, more energy efficient artifacts, devices for usage. All these are possibilities. So it has been a very, very, I would say, educative session. Dr. Pradhan, I can't thank you enough for taking us through all these things. And with that, I think I will request Amarendra to offer a formal vote of thanks. Thank you very much.
No, I actually, Mr. Pankaj Kumar Nayak will be delivering the vote of thanks. So
sorry,
I request.
my mistake.
Okay. Okay, it's all right. It's all right. Thank you so much, sir, once again for such a interesting talk on climate, macroeconomic impact. As sir said, Jugal sir mentioned about it, it was a very detailed presentation, and it was like a classroom learning where people like me, young people like me, learned a lot about modeling, especially in macroeconomic implication of climate change on the entire economy. And the question that actually came from the floor was also equally stimulating, and it was very thought-provoking, especially from Professor Sahu. And as we all know that how bad the climate risk is looking, especially for a country like India, which is at the cusp of climate change. And as we know that global climate risk index shows that India's condition is day by day, it is degrading, and it is estimated that by the end of this century, India may lose around 3 to 10% of GDP, and most it is going to again impact, as Professor Pradhan had mentioned, that the vulnerable section of the society and poverty may intensify by around 3.5% to 5%. And having said this, and we also know very much the impact of climate change that is going to have on our rural economy. As a country, we are still depend on agricultural sector. Half of our populations are still engaged in it. So the impact of climate change is going to be enormous in near future, and obviously it requires precise modeling where we can precisely tell robust result that how far this climate change is going to impact our macroeconomy at large. And thank you so much, sir, for all this theoretical insight that you gave in this brief lecture. We are very much enlightened with it. I would like to thank you once again for accepting our proposal to deliver this lecture on 55th Foundation Day of Odisha Economic Association. Our heartfelt gratitude to our beloved President, Dr. Jugal Mahapatra sir, who has presided over this meeting. All the preceding President of OEA, especially Professor Keshav Das, who just preceded Dr. Mahapatra, and all the participants, Professor Manoj Panda, Professor Sijit Misra, Professor Sahu, Nayak, and all the delegates who had joined us today. Last but not the least, our special thank to Dr. Amarendra Das for putting this together. And we look forward from hearing you in near future. And we really, as a OEA, we try that we engage in more policy debate like this. And once again, thank you all, and please be tuned with OEA for future correspondence and updates. Thank you so much once again. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.